Yeah.
I would at the top, the senior person of Border Force in my office, and I would say to them, this is what I want doing, can you do it? And if he says no, I'd sack him there and then. When you use the word guest, that implies they're temporary, they're here because we want them. When you say immigrant, it just means someone who will always live here now, but they're a foreigner.
If you were Trump and you could do the executive orders like he did, and I'm springing this on you now, I'm trying to prepare for this. So you need to think carefully, because I'm only giving you 5 things to do. You've got 5 executive orders. What 5 things would you sign on day one of your presidency? President Trump / Buckley. Yeah.
Well, just for our listeners, we don't have executive orders in the UK, so this can't be done like that, but I get your point.
You just destroyed the magic of this
moment.
I
don't want people thinking, other people thinking I'm an idiot thinking we can do this, or other people thinking it can be done.
Well, I didn't know, I was just assuming it could be done.
No, it can't be done. Different system altogether.
I'm clearly an idiot.
But the 5 things I would do is, the first thing I would do is I would close our borders on day one. I would have the top of the Border Force in my office.
That's a thumbs up and number 1 I'm giving you.
Yeah. I would at the top, the senior person of Border Force in my office, and I would say to them, this is what I want doing, can you do it? And if he says no, I'd sack him there and then. And I would get number 2 in, and I said, can you do this? And number 2 will go yes, because they want to be promoted. So I'd get that done. So
when you say close the borders, you're not just talking about the channel, you're talking about any immigration.
Every visa that hasn't been issued will be cancelled. Any boat coming across the channel will be intercepted, and they will be going to open air prisons with tents. They will not be free. We'll turn those boats around if we can. We'll be getting some of them on ships, taking them to the Ascension Island. If I had time to do something before that, as in to get that plan in place, I'd be looking at all that. So no, immigration on day number 2. And it was said, Nick, how many immigrants came in the country today? On visas, I would say 0.
On boats?
Boats, 0. The only immigrants, well, I wouldn't call them immigrants, the only people, foreigners, allowed in the country on day 2 of mine would be tourists.
Or business people.
Or business people, yeah.
Okay, good. Number 2.
Number 2, I would... number 2.
You're running out already.
No. I'm trying to think. Number 2 would have to be. We just mentioned it about the grooming gangs. I would want to look at every report that's ever been done in the country. I'd get a panel together with people like Maggie Oliver and that on it, and I'd be saying to them, highlight any named police officer in those reports who failed, didn't do the duty, incompetent, and we would get them all in the court of law. And I'd be saying to every police officer, every senior civil servant, right, why did you do what you did? Because we're going to prosecute you for that now, unless you can name someone higher up who told you what to do. Because I want to go to the top of this. So this is your one and only opportunity. Grass up whoever's above you who told you what to do, or carry the can, because we're going to deal with you now. Believe me, they'll all be grassing people up. And we would get to the top of it, and I'd want some of them in jail. I couldn't send them to jail because I'd want to follow the rule of law. It has to be a rule of law. But I would make sure that at these interviews, people had to turn up, otherwise you'd be arrested and turned up. I'd have people giving evidence under oath. So if they perjured themselves, they'd be going to jail. Andy Burnham's inquiry into Oldham and Rochdale, people were invited to speak to the panel. Certain police officers and council staff refused to turn up. I might get myself in trouble. So what sort of inquiry is that when you can't force the people you want to speak to? Some councils and some departments refuse to give the evidence they asked for. I'm having none of that. So we'd get to the bottom of that, and I would want those people who were guilty locked up. I would then look at immigration already here.
Number 3.
I
think you're missing some really big ones here, but probably because I've sprung it on you.
Right, maybe. Number 3 would be on day 3, because it'll take a day to organise the planes. I will be deporting 10 or 12,000, I think it's 10,000 foreign prisoners in our jails, deported on the third day. No right of appeal, nothing. They're straight to be deported. If their country of origin won't accept them, Ascension Island, South Atlantic, that's where they'll be going. I would then be looking at every foreign criminal who's now not in jail.
We're still number 3?
No, this is still 3. Right. So this is all about foreign criminals. Anyone who's not in jail.
I think 3 is part of 1 to do with the answer. But anyway, go on. Yeah,
you could. That's all. Yeah, right, you could. Okay. But I would be.
You're wasting your wishes. But
sorry,
anyway, go on. Yeah.
I'd be deporting every foreigner in this country who has committed a crime.
Yeah.
4 and 5. 4. I would be looking at cutting red tape. I would be looking at what's holding our business and our growth back. That would be multifaceted. So I'd be looking at drill baby drill. I'd be looking at...
You're heading in the right direction now.
I would be looking at tearing up all the red tape that we're still following from Brussels and all that crap. I would be moving... I'd have a policy where to introduce a new law, we have to remove 3 existing laws. I'd be looking at our tax system. I'd be heavily simplifying that. It'll put loads of accountants out of work, but it'll make everyone's life easier. I'd be looking at reducing the size of the state. I'd be looking at certain departments going, that whole department goes. All these quangos, there's something like 1,000 quangos. All that will be going. And if those jobs need to be done, they'll be given to the minister in charge of, is it health, is it agriculture? Because we keep having these government ministers on government salaries and all their decisions and all their work are being done by someone else who are not answerable to anybody. That all stops. So I'd be shrinking the size of the state. I would be making sure regulations are disappearing to help businesses. And that's what I'd be doing. That's my number 4.
Number 5.
Number 5. Number 5.
While you're ruminating on number 5, shall I tell you the ones I would do?
Yes.
So 1, and I haven't actually prepared for this either, but I've just been thinking, it's given me time to think while you were talking. 1, I'd stop immigration. Yeah. And that would, same as you did, but I'd also include in that chucking the foreign criminals abroad and all that sort of stuff. Second thing is I'd stop net zero immediately. Anything associated with net zero will be cancelled immediately. Yeah. Any subsidies, anything like that.
That comes under my shrinking the size of the state and get rid of all that crap. Yeah.
Third thing is I would cut the civil service in half.
Yeah, that comes under that.
So as well. Under that, those 6 million public sector employees, I would reduce to 3 million people. Fourthly, I would stop all external funding going out to foreign countries, whoever that might be. And 5, I would leave all the international organisations.
That's my number 5. As you're talking,
exactly what. And the one I'm missing there, I'd drill baby drill as well. I'd get that in there as well, basically. So those 5 things would transform this country.
I would leave, and right. My number 5 would be leaving the European Court of Human Rights. Yeah. Leaving the UN Convention of Refugees. Yeah. Leaving the WHO.
Which is what Trump has done, by the way. Sorry, I forgot to tell you.
Yeah. I read that. I'd be leaving all those international organisations that take power and responsibility away from Parliament.
Correct.
I want Parliament to be sovereign. Not because Parliament's perfect and not because they make the best decisions, but because we can hold those individuals accountable.
Yeah.
The days of there's nothing I can do about this because the EU made us do it. Nothing we can do about this because we've signed up to the United Nations Convention on Refugees. There's nothing we can do. No. All those days are gone. I want politicians to say, it's all down to me.
Yeah.
It's all down to me.
Yeah.
That's the sort of politician I would want. I would want the power because with power comes responsibility.
Yeah.
With great power comes great responsibility. And I would want that. I cherish that because I know I could make good decisions for the country. But that power has to be limited with checks and balances because everyone could become a dictator and authoritarian. So we need those checks and balances. But at the moment, we've got the complete opposite. We've got politicians who don't want power because it leads to responsibility. And if you've got responsibility, you may be blamed at some point. They're the complete opposite.
I would also do something that you've suggested. I think is a really good idea. Until you said it, I hadn't even thought about the ramifications of it. You are not allowed to be an MP, or you are not allowed to be a councillor, hold any political office in this country unless you are born in this country and are a British citizen.
Yeah, I'm quite happy having a different class of person living in this country. You could call it a second-class citizen, but that has negative connotations, you know, or you're a second, no. But I would have anybody in this country who wasn't born here, I would have them never been able to take public office, never been able to work for the government. And there'd be one or two special cases, such as, you know, he's the son of an Iraqi, born in Arabia, but he's got great language skills, and we need someone to do. It'd be very far and few between, because he has something that we don't have.
You might sign him off personally.
Exactly, something like that.
You could have an hour a day in your office at 10 Downing Street, where little exceptions to your rules can be signed off.
Exactly.
But only you can sign them off.
Yeah. I would also any non-British born person would pay more tax. They'd have a higher tax code. They'd have limited access to state services.
Yeah.
And if they ever did anything wrong, we could deport them. And if enough people set up a petition and got to court, local people can deport non-British people from this country. I would have that.
Oh, really?
I'm not saying your neighbour don't like you so he can get and deport you. It would have to be, you know, a high criteria. There'd have to be checks and balances. But I
think you should, anything like that, you should sign off personally. Then.
Yeah. But I think if your community get together and we get 5,000 signatures that you come from Poland and you're drunk and you're always causing problems in the neighbourhood, and the whole, 5,000 people signed that, I think that needs looking at, because that person is Polish or Albanian or whatever, but they're not bringing anything to the, because the local neighbourhood don't want them, so they should be able to be deported. I would have something like that. I want the power back to the people.
Any Polish heavy drinkers who happen to be watching this programme, we're not specifically targeting you.
I said Polish because they're white. That's why I
see. Right.
That's why I wanted to give an example of a white country, a white foreigners, because I don't want people going, oh, look, you just want to get black and no. Anybody, French person, if the community sign, we're sick of that French guy, he's always doing this and that, leaving rubbish outside, and he's threatening to assault us, and I'd like to get to a stage where the communities can get together and insist on deportation for guests in this country. I don't want to call them immigrants, I want to call them guests, because when you use the word guest, that implies they're temporary. They're here because we want them. When you say immigrant, it just means someone who will always live here now, but they're a foreigner. I don't want to use immigrant. I want to use the word guest. Yeah.
And I think that's another important point. This concept we have in this country, which is very almost unique to this country, that people who come here after a period of time can become citizens just by a matter of time. That's got to go away as well.
That has to go.
You have no right to become a citizen of this country just because you've lived here for 5 years.
Exactly. And your incentive is to be a good citizen so you can stay here.
Yeah.
And if you're a good citizen and you stay here, your children will be born British.
Yes.
That's your incentive.
Well,
so you may not gain all the benefits because you're an immigrant, but you're doing it for your children, and your children will be born British and they'll have a better life with full rights.
Well, I think I'm going to shock you now. Because Trump is now has signed an executive order, or is in the process of signing, to say that children born in America do not automatically have a right of becoming American citizens. Yeah. Are you aware of that?
Yes.
But you would be happy for that to be in place?
Well, America is, I think, the only country in the world that has that.
What, to become a citizen?
That anyone born in America is an American citizen.
Oh, right. So we don't have that here.
We don't have that here, no.
Right, okay, fine. But you just said you would allow that to happen here in this country.
No, not allow it to happen, but so if we've got an immigrant here and they're staying, and we know they're staying and they're making a life here because we want them, because otherwise we'd be kicking them out, that their incentive to be a good citizen is not only them staying here, and they don't have to complain about that they're a second-class citizen, which they will be, but they know their children will
might
be
have a
British.
chance.
Yes, yeah. So that's why they're working hard for their children.
Right.
In America, illegal immigrants
Who have children.
who go to America and have children, those children are American citizens.
Yeah.
That's...
So Trump's trying to overturn that.
Yeah.
And do you think that's right?
Yes.
Right. Okay.
If you break into a country and have a child, that child is still an immigrant. And if we deport people from this country and they're, let's say there's a married couple in this country and we're deporting because they've been committing benefit fraud and they've got 3 children and all those 3 children were born here. Well, I wouldn't necessarily class those 3 children as British. They were born of immigrants and now we're deporting the family. So they'd all be deported.
I think something that's interesting here is, I think the conversation is moving on, isn't it? You and I, a year ago when we started this podcast, would not be speaking as we are now.
We wouldn't, would we?
And I genuinely believe that. I think if you go back and look at our really early episodes of the
we'd have been talking about the same things,
yes,
but we would have been a little bit softer in language.
We would have couched them in a different way or whatever. But I think the conversations are starting now, aren't they?
Yes.